Hey, George. Dr. Calhoun, are you sound pretty good? How are you? My mother? Pretty good. How are you today? Busy, but going easy. Between you guys and us, we close it over 100,000. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think we did go yeah.
Second dosing today and first dosing Friday, Saturday, and Monday, and then second dosing all next week. So I think we're starting to hit the demand.
I think yesterday we did 900. You know, we so you guys do these big mega things, and then you take a few days off. We go every day.
Are you 7 days a week right now?
6 days. We don't do Sunday.
Yeah, we're doing 5. We're doing Tuesday, Saturday. The next week we're doing Monday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Good job.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Tyler. We're in our 101st year. I'm Campbell Walters, the person who is honored and blessed to be president this year. And I want you all to know how very welcome we want you to feel today. It means a lot to us for you to visit with us on an hour, take an hour of your day. I know everybody has really busy lives, and to take an hour and travel here and break bread with us it's very meaningful to us, and we very much appreciate it. And we want you to come again. We do great things at this club, and to be a part of it, feed your soul. So, okay, with that, make sure your cell phones are turned off so we don't have any interruptions. Dr. Calhoun will probably teach you to the principal's office. And I really want to I want you to help me thank our pianist today, Stephanie Bassett, for doing such a beautiful job. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, and now then, if you'll stand, Davy Jones is going to come up and lead us in the pledge of the national anthem.
President Walters, join me please, face the flag as we pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose stripes and bright stars through the perilous light, for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the long thirsting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Deliver the invocation today, introduce our guest. And I have to say, that was one of the most beautiful renditions of Star Spangled Banner. We should have had a recording of that. It was really that. It was really beautiful.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say I'm stepping out of my comfort zone today because normally when Pam asks me to pray, I give the invocation. I give her a look of shock during headlights. And the reason why is because I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas. I went to a African American Catholic school where Sister Kathleen told me that without paper, so if you could bow your heads, please. Lord, thank you for getting us here safely, in one piece, giving us the opportunity for fellowship and to grow together today with our fellow Rotarians in the city of Tyler, Smith County, and East Texas. I pray that everyone is vaccinated with us here today as well, and or getting their second dose. Please just watch over our city, watch over our county, and watch over us as we continue to do your work and do good work in the city of Tyler and Smith County. In your name, through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
So please have a seat. And do we have any visiting Rotarians with us today? I see a lot of faces I haven't seen in a while, and I'm excited and ecstatic about that here's someone this year. See, this is the fullest that we've seen in the room in a long time, and may we continue to have this opportunity to meet together. So we will start with our visitors at the front table right here at the end.
I'd like to introduce Sarah Maynard. Would you stand up, Sarah? She's here visiting with us today. Let's welcome her.
Next, we'll go to the middle front table right here. We have, oh, sorry, Jim. We have one more.
Yes. I have a guest here today, Marilyn Glass. Would you like to stand up here?
Thank you for joining us.
And I have a visitor here with me, is my friend JJ off here.
Do we have anybody visiting on the front table right here?
Well, I think Rich is here for his,
Is she here?
Is this your third, fourth? Oh, yay. So he'll be joining soon. Rich, stand up. Yeah, you can't be shy in this place.
The table over here near the door. We have any visitors? Tricia?
I brought one of my friends, Noah Morris.
Steve, Thomas Clyde, he's retired newspaper and is with my organization, the House Mission.
And I brought a guest with me today. This is Joella's second time joining us. She is the coordinator. So, Joella is the coordinator at the University of Texas at Thunder for campus activities, but I wanted Joella to share with you this time what she is studying for her EDD.
Hello, everyone. My dissertation is focusing on the sense of belonging first generation commuter students on college.
Wow. That's very important work. The back table in the corner, do we have any visitors today? No? In the back middle table?
I brought my friend and coworker, Sarah Lake. She works at the bank.
Welcome. And the back table in the corner.
And I have brought my husband, Charles, Howell, to visit with us today, and I'm also very happy to see that.
So good to see you. Well, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
How awesome. It's really wonderful to have all of you here today. Thank you for bringing your guests, and Jess, thanks for coming. I want to thank our greeters today, two gorgeous women, Rochelle Ewert and Kimberly. I always say the wrong last name, so Kimberly. Thank y'all both, you did a great job. Okay, now for always my favorite part of the program, except for Dr. Of course. Our famous Paul Weiser, owner of radio stations and national speaker on the radio. Radio stations and national speaker on the radio. For this week in history.
Thank you. Starting today in 1774, the British Parliament the British Parliament passed the Boston Port Act, closing the port of Boston, demanding the equivalent of $1 million in today's dollars for the tea that had been dumped into the harbor the previous December at the Boston Tea Party. Intended to bring Massachusetts and by extension the American colonies to their knees, the act had the opposite effect of galvanizing the colonial opposition to the British Crown, and the rest, as they say, is history. On the 26th of March, 1945, the Battle of Iwo Jima, which had begun with the invasion by U.S. forces on February 19th, came to an end. Of the 23,000 Japanese troops on the island, only 216 survived to be taken prisoner. The U.S. suffered 6,821 killed, 19,217 wounded. It was the only battle in World War II in which the U.S. Marines suffered more casualties than the enemy. On the 27th of March in 1977, fog and misunderstood radio communications led to a KLM Royal Dutch 747 airliner starting its takeoff roll while the Pan American World Airways 747 was still on that runway at Tenerife in the Canary Islands. The collision would kill 583 people, making it the deadliest accident in aviation history. On the 28th of March, 1979, a pressure valve in unit number 2 at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, failed to close, releasing a small amount of radioactive cooling water. Workers misread conflicting data and overrode automatic safety measures that had contained the fault, resulting in a small release of radiation to the surrounding area, but severely crippling the nuclear power industry in the United States. On the 29th of March, 1973, the last combat troops departed from Saigon, ending U.S. military action in Vietnam. A little over 2 years later, remaining U.S. civilian personnel would have to be airlifted out of Saigon in advance of a takeover of the country by the communist North Vietnamese troops. On the 30th of March, 1981, a bit more than 2 months after being in office, President Ronald Reagan was shot in the chest by John Hinckley outside the Washington Hilton Hotel. Reagan left the hospital 13 days later and worked from the White House residence. He returned to the Oval Office on April 26th. And on Wednesday, the 31st, we'll celebrate on the 31st, 1889, the Eiffel Tower in Paris was opened to the public during the Paris Exposition. It was hated by many influential Parisians. Novelist Guy de Maupassant reportedly ate his lunch at the base of it every day so he wouldn't have to look at it. The tower was set to revert to the city of Paris and be demolished in 1909 at the end of its 20-year concession that had been granted to Gustave Eiffel, the creator. But radio had been invented by them, and the tower's usefulness as an antenna site spared it from being dismantled. Today, it is the most visited paved monument in the world. And birthdays, the coming week. Elton John turns 75 today. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi turns 81 tomorrow on Friday. Jennifer Grey, any Dirty Dancing fans? Here, remember that movie. Jennifer Grey, baby, turns 61 tomorrow. 61 tomorrow, yes. Singer Diana Ross turns 77 tomorrow. And our very own Earl Campbell turns 66 on Monday, and that's this week in history.
Thank you so much, Paul. Isn't that fun? I love this week in history. I mean, who thinks back on all those things that happened this week, so many years and decades ago? Okay, let's talk about Rotary business for a second. On April the 8th, we're going to do our East Texas Food Bank volunteer time. So everybody get ready, put it on your calendars. It's at 5:30 at the East Texas Food Bank. And if you've never shown up for that, it is really an experience. And talk about feeding your soul. It really does. I mean, you realize you're doing work to help people that really, really, really need help. You don't have enough to eat. That's being in a bind. So it's wonderful. 5:30 on April 8th. Yes. I don't think so. I think they have a rule about underage or something, and I don't know. Holly knows, but
I think they have to be 18 or older.
Yeah. Judge Ken Starr will be here on May the 27th. Yes, you heard me correctly. Judge Ken Starr, the famous Ken Starr, will be back this year. Thank you, DM, very much. And he's going to be speaking on his new book, Religious Liberty in Crisis. How's that for putting a little fear? Okay, but it'll be wonderful and it'll be enlightening, and the room, I'm sure, will be packed once again. So get your reservations in early and get your ticket and invite your friends, because that will be quite an experience. Who knows what's happening on June the 6th? Nothing. How about June 5th? It's our centennial celebration. we're gonna be celebrating a year late, but 100 years of existence for this wonderful, wonderful Rotary Club. DM was our president last year, and we should have been able to have it last year, but COVID caused a delay. So we're going to be having it this year on June the 5th. It'll be right here at Holly Tree, and please come. It'll be a wonderful experience. We're going to have a lot of memorabilia on display that will make it worth the price of the ticket. And there'll be a lot of other wonderful things to experience that evening. So please come. I want to announce about our dear friend Barbara Sullivan. She has had a really rough time and has lost her eyesight in one eye. Love some encouragement and prayers. And Holly, I think that in the newsletter. If not, she'll be sending it out. And just take a minute and either send her a card or put a call into her. She would love to hear from all of her Rotary friends. Hopefully, she's joining us today via YouTube.
She hasn't been able to yet, so
Okay.
she's trying. I mean, phone calls and visits would probably be best, because I think right now the challenge of reading is difficult. She has visiting angels coming in to assist, but she's kind of feeling a little lost because her family's not always here to help her, and so she would just love to hear from some of us.
So just take a minute and do something very, very kind for her. It'll be very uplifting to her. Our program for April the 1st is going to be Dr. Jeffrey Wary, East Texas Trauma and Abuse Services. That should be interesting. And before we introduce our speaker today, David Nichols, could you come forward real quick? We're doing pretty good on time. David has a couple of announcements I'd like for him to make to the membership.
A lot of people that are new here don't know what Rotary does in mission work and using the money that we collect. I'm a director of an organization called House Mission. We incorporated with the Rotary clubs for at least 25 or 30 years. And we started a school at the agriculture part of Belize, which no electricity, and it has grown to be a huge thing. Barry Jones and Joe Dodge from the Sunrise Club and I are going down there May the 5th to reestablish our connection with them because COVID set us back. We have another group came in and gave us $100,000 to put a complete football field with solar panels in. It's quite an exciting thing. We have a tilapia program, aquaponics, graduating students every year. It's exciting. So that's part of this club. This club helped start that. Believe it or not, Billy Hills Jr. was one of the people that got into that very first. So I'm excited about going there. We're doing one more thing. This club collected some money, helped cooperate with my organization, and we're providing dental care at the Bethesda Clinic for about 6 recovery homes. We're doing one tomorrow for Sunshine Lighthouse over. That's for women who've been brought out of this drug rehab. That's right, thank you. And we are doing one in June from Rehab Retreat, which is for sex-trafficked young women over there. You'd be surprised how fast that's growing and how terrible it is in the state of Texas. And so we're helping them too. Thank you all.
That's just one of the many things that we do, and it's such a blessing to have people like David and Barry and Joe that are willing to commit their time and go down and keep these programs active and going. So you just, when I say every week, you don't realize how much you're doing just by being here and supporting this club. There's so much going on. It's I remember at the end of last year, DM gave in his parting speech a list of everything we had done that year. And it was, I mean, I started crying. It brings tears to your eyes. We do so much good. Anyway, okay, enough about patting us on our own backs. Okay, now then, Bill Pascal, President-elect, will you please come forward and introduce our speaker today?
Thank you, President Pamela. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. That's Dr. Kirk Calhoun. He became president of UT at Tyler on January the 4th, 2021. He's also chairman of the board of directors for UT Health East Texas. Prior to his appointment, he was president of UT Health Science Center in Tyler for 18 years. Before that, he was senior vice president and medical director at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. changing culture can be partially here. He was also a faculty member and administrator at the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston from 1993 to 2000. Dr. Calhoun, it's a pleasure to welcome you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Do you need this for the video, or can I just speak?
You probably use
Use the
them,
microphone.
yeah,
Okay.
because some can't hear, otherwise we're good.
Oh, everyone here has perfect hearing. That's the whole issue. Perfect eyesight, perfect hearing. And age has not done anything at all to those senses. Well, it's a real pleasure to have an opportunity to be here and speak to this Rotary again. Just listening to the wonderful things you all do to help our community, it's invaluable. And there's just something special about Rotarians and how they care about their community and the amount of involvement that they put into it. I just wanted to, Ms. Wilson, isn't it? Yes. So Ms. Wilson actually mentioned attending a parochial school in the African American community, which was my experience too. I grew up in a fairly poor, pretty tough neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. There was a Catholic church there, St. Martin's Catholic Church, and they still ran an elementary school. And the nuns there taught in that elementary school. And I thought and really felt that they gave us a very special opportunity. As a child, I had severe asthma. I was bedridden my 7th grade year and couldn't attend class. And the nuns actually came to my home and sat at my bedside and educated me as I was trying to recover from my asthma at that time. We didn't have as good of medicines then as we have now to deal with issues like that. But actually, even more importantly, those nuns allowed me to have enough knowledge to move on and get a scholarship to a very fine parochial high school in Chicago. It was the school that most of the leadership in the city of Chicago got to go to. The De La Salle High School there in Chicago. It was Mayor Daley's high school. Just any top figure in the city, their kids got to go to De La Salle. We were taught by the Christian Brothers of France. They were not as nice as the nuns. They beat the hell out of you. You know, you learned it or you got hit. It was just that simple. That was life with those guys. And you know, if you had a
paddles with the
oh, they had the panels with the writing on it and all that. And if it was a all-male parochial school, and so if you got in a dispute with someone, they took you to the gym, put boxing gloves on, and put you in the ring until one of you gave up or both of you fell out, and they just let you go at it. And it was a very interesting culture, but it was what I look back now and say that's what I needed. And it was certainly what a lot of young people needed in order to give them the discipline to go on and do other things in life. And it taught me in so many ways the value of a quality education and how even if you come from disadvantaged circumstances, that a quality education gives you a leg up. It gives you a shot. Doesn't guarantee that all the wrongs of the world will go away. You know, people experience, you know, discrimination, and they'll still experience unfair situations and so forth. But I feel very strongly that education at least gives you a tool that you can use to help overcome those kinds of challenges. I wanted to, my mother actually wanted me to be a physician and tried to do all she could and worked her poor hands to the bone to help put me in a position, make sure I could go to college and then go to medical school and become
become a physician. It was both my dream as well as hers to become a physician. And I was going to just go and be, you know, a practitioner in my local community. But, you know, I tell young people all the time, you never know what you're going to be doing a decade later. And as it worked out, my desire to be involved in education and teaching, as well as be a physician, took me to academic medicine and the training of healthcare professionals, and in particular, the training of doctors. And eventually, I was at the Medical University of Kansas City, on the faculty there, and had progressed about as far as I could have at the pace that I wanted to go. I wanted to go at a pretty brisk pace, and an opportunity opened up. I saw an ad that they were looking for a vice chair of the Department of Internal Medicine at University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. And I said, oh, yeah, I would like it. You know, I'm a clinic director at Missouri. I would love to be a vice chair in the Department of Medicine. So I went and I told Jeanette, I said, but you know, I'm not qualified to be a vice chair yet. There's still some things that I need to accomplish. And she said, yeah, what the heck, you'll learn by the experience of applying. So I had no real expectations of getting the job. But one day I got a phone call and they said they wanted me to come down to Galveston and interview. Now, we were living in Kansas City at the time. I think I had visited Dallas for a day for some kind of convention in downtown Dallas or meeting in downtown Dallas. And then I was back up in Kansas City. So I really didn't know anything about Texas. And my idea of Texas was Lonesome Dove.
Not Houston traffic.
You know, that was Texas in my mind. And I'm down in Galveston and the beaches and the palm trees. And I'm, oh, this is Texas. I didn't quite realize that. In fact, that's one of the things I love about Texas is this is a state that has all kinds of diversity. Whether it is geographic diversity or environmental diversity or diversity amongst its people. Texas has great diversity, and it's something I think this state should be extremely proud of. But that was my real growth opportunity in academic medicine, and that led to coming to UT Southwestern. He's at Park, where the young doctors who come there to get the experience they need to go on to a career in medicine. I really loved that job. And a few years later, I got a call from the executive vice chancellor at the UT system who said that they need a new president for the Health Science Center in Tyler. And I actually knew a little bit about Tyler because as that young high school kid who wanted to be a doctor, I wanted to be in sort of a middle-sized community. I didn't believe that a very large city like Chicago was going to be where I wanted to set up my practice. And I actually remember pulling out a map on the floor and looking at mid-sized cities around the country and looking at this city called Tyler that wasn't too far from Dallas. On the map, it looked like it was a pretty good sized place, and had said to myself, you know, that may be somewhere where, and lo and behold, offer came along. I actually told the executive vice chancellor at that time, no, I'm not interested. There are 11 other candidates for that job. I don't feel I'm quite ready for it yet to be a president of one of the medical centers, even the smallest one, because that's what Tyler was. It still is the smallest of the academic medical centers. But he urged me to go ahead and stay in the running for the job. I was talking with Dr. Hudnall about Kern Wildenthal, who's president of UT Southwestern and very well known in medical circles. And I went and told Kern, I said, well, I'm going to let them put my name in as a candidate for Tyler. But, you know, there are 11 other guys. They were all guys, unfortunately. Doesn't work that way now, but they were all guys. I said, there are 11 other guys that are candidates for that job in Tyler. And I said, you know, they're not going to choose me. And Kern Wildenthal said, sit down, Kirk. He says, they're going to pick you. And I said, no. But several months later, I found myself sitting in Austin, one of the two finalists for the job here in Tyler to be interviewed by the Board of Regents. And the other individual that they were considering was the guy I had beat out 3 years later for the job at Parker. So we wound up interviewing that day, and I got the phone call I asked him from the Regents saying that they had selected me for the job. And that weekend, Jeanette and I got in the car and drove over to Tyler for the first time, just to ride around on our own and get a feel for the community and what it can offer. So that was coming up on 19 years ago, and still here in Tyler. And it's been a really wonderful experience and a great ride for us. It's been, though, in the last few years that I think things have moved most dramatically with respect to UT and what UT is involved with and doing in this community. And it was nice to hear folks from UT and from the Health Science Center here in this meeting today. We've always had a lot of ambition for the Health Science Center. Like any new president, I had those ambitions about how I wanted us to grow. There were some challenges, some handicaps. Our biggest handicap was location. We have this wonderful medical center right here in Tyler, but the Health Science Center was out at 155 and 271 and a little bit off the beaten path, although it's fairly close to the Interstate 20. And we tried to do what we could to sort of take advantage of that. And we served a very poor rural population. A lot of the patients we cared for did not have insurance, and so it made the financial management of the Health Science Center a dramatic challenge. And it was sort of like, what major issue are we going to have to overcome this year in order to keep our doors open and continue to do our mission of medical education? And we had the aspiration, though, of having a medical school here in Tyler. But there were a couple of barriers to us moving forward with that initiative. And again, I talked to Kern Wildenthal, the president of Southwestern at the time. Not to speak badly of him at all, because he's a wonderful person, but he said, Tyler will never get a medical school. Absolutely never. And so you go there, you put in a few years, and then move on to a bigger, better place. That's my advice to you. And I said, well, why would we not get a medical school in Tyler? He said 3 big reasons. One is that your hospital at the Health Science Center is not large enough, doesn't take care of a wide enough, broad enough diversity of patients to support a major medical education program. We had one of the top we still do, one of the top family medicine residency training programs at the Health Science Center. We have occupational medicine. But a medical school, you're talking about a whole different thing, because you have to teach OB, you have to teach general surgery, so on and so forth. And he said, you'll never get one of the 2 big hospitals there to work. And I didn't necessarily think that was true, but I spent 15 years trying to get one of them to work. But he said, that's barrier number one. You don't have a major hospital that can support a medical school. Barrier number two is that medical schools are incredibly expensive. They depend a lot on philanthropy. Grateful patients who get care, and they get cared for by the faculty of the medical school, and they give big donations. The communities generally are pretty supportive of medical schools, and they generate a lot of philanthropy for medical schools. He says, you're just not going to get that kind of money out of Thailand. And then thirdly, he said, to get a medical school in Texas, you need political clout. And those folks over there just don't have enough political clout to make it happen. That, they can't get their act together. So those were the three reasons he gave us. When the board of East Texas Medical Center, ETMC, decided to put their health system up for sale, I said, gee, this may be an opportunity for us to get the medical center that we need in order to support a possible medical school. And I said, I ought to bid on this. And I went to the UT system and I asked permission, went to the executive vice chancellor and said, I want to get to the medical center. I said, sit down, Kirk. I want to remind you, you have no money. None. UT system has a lot of money. He said, you have no money. I said, well, after an awful lot of back and forth, he agreed that I told him, I said, well, let me bid anyway. I'll learn something about my market, and that will possibly later on be helpful in negotiations or whatever by just going through the process. And so we went ahead and we entered the competition with some really big national groups that were interested in East Texas Medical Center and the assets. And fortunately, the board, I think in their wisdom, the discussion of money was put off, and they wanted to know other things. What would you be doing for the community? How would you treat the employees? How would you treat the medical staff that will remain there? They had these other kinds of issues that they really wanted to understand before they even got into a discussion of money, other than, give us at least an idea of what you think it might be worth. Well, I give an idea of what I thought it was worth, didn't mean I could buy it. And so we went through that process, and lo and behold, I got a call, and it said, the board has decided that the Health Science Center's bid would be one of the 3 finalists. And in 2 weeks, we want your financial offer and, to be your best possible offer to buy. And I said, great. And I ran down the UT system and I said, I'm a finalist. He said, sit down. You don't have any money. And we're not going to give it to you. Okay? Buying hospital systems is not something that the University of Texas typically does. We build systems, but we don't typically go out and pay a slew of money and buy them. And he said that about the only way you can do this deal is you better find yourself a partner with deep pockets and some expertise at running a large system, because you have great people, but you're running this relatively small 100-bed hospital, and now you're talking about a huge system that has 10 other hospitals. And how would you even manage that if you bought it? And I must say that I was pretty disappointed because I thought there was no way we could do this with the bids due in 2 weeks. But came back here to Tyler, called the investment bank division of Bank of America. At that time, I did not know how much investment bankers make. Now I do. A lot. But we talked to the investment bankers. A couple of days later, they had us flying to Chicago. We flew up to Chicago. We met with a couple of groups that were interested in partnering with the University of Texas in a health system. We interviewed them. Out of that interview process, we picked a company out in Nashville called Ardent Health Services, and thought that they offered the best opportunity for us in terms of what they were willing to promise to continue to do for the community, one, and two, the amount of equity they were going to give us for being a partner in the venture. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, we would do this by setting up a new company, UT Health East Texas. And, you know, they were putting up all the money, so they had a bigger equity stake in it. But the structure of the company is that the governance was 50-50. They get 5 board members, we get 5 board members. We get to name the chairman of the board. I name myself. And that a good portion of the earnings would go to support medical education, physician training in Tyler. And that was the birth of UT Health East Texas. And that gave us the hospital system. The proceeds from the sale, East Texas Medical Center was a not-for-profit, so the proceeds from the sale had to go to a not-for-profit organization. It went to the ETMC Foundation. And I said, look, you know, the ETMC Foundation has gotten all this money and they're going to do great things for the community. I'm going to go ask them, can I get some of the money back so that we can have a medical school in Tyler? And went and visited with the East Texas Medical Center Foundation, and we talked and talked, went back and forth, back and forth. And finally, they called us up and said, this is really important. It's important for the community of Tyler. It's going to come over a decade, but we'll give you $80 million to get the medical school started. So, and it's less at the beginning and more towards the end, but we got $80 million. That was the seed that took care of there's not enough philanthropy in Tyler that you get a medical school. So that only left political clout. And guess who's chairman of the board of regents for the University of Tyler, for University of Texas? Kevin L. Tyler. Guess who is Governor Abbott's good friend? Kevin L. Tyler. Guess who's the Texas Senate, and by the way, the Texas House, all love Kevin L. Tyler. So we started having the discussions with Chairman L. Tyler, and he's been wonderful. He's been very supportive of this. And all of a sudden, the 3 critical factors that Kern Wildenthal outlined, Tyler had dealt with all those issues. And we were in a position to get a medical school, which is critical at this point, because there have been a number of new medical schools in Texas. Houston just got one. Fort Worth just got a second one. That's the 3rd one in Houston. Fort Worth has gotten their 2nd, and of course Southwestern's in Dallas. It's very likely that there will not be another new medical school in Texas for probably the next 30 years. If we had not moved fairly quickly, the music would have stopped, and Northeast Texas would not have had a chair and would have been the only region of the state. Because West Texas has a medical school now. They put Rio Grande in so that South Texas could have a medical school. Austin got a new medical school not too long ago, put something in Central Texas. East Texas was being forgotten, and the healthcare needs of East Texas are significantly higher than many other parts of the state. Higher death rates, higher morbidity. And we still smoke a lot out here in East Texas, and a lot of other challenges, rural communities, getting in for medical care, the public health infrastructure across these poor rural communities is not as sophisticated as some of the public health infrastructures Georgia tell you, in some of these big cities, and what they can do in order to help their folks. And that's what has led to the medical school. Out of the medical school, it became much clearer now, something that has been discussed for probably the last 25 years, and that's bringing two campuses together, UT Tyler and the Health Science Center. They are 15 minutes apart as the crow flies. The UT Tyler has the nursing school and the pharmacy school, and the Health Science Center has the School of Community and Rural Health, the Public Health school. We had the biological sciences and the medical research that is necessary. Now with the health system, we have a really great clinical base, not only to educate doctors, but to educate more nurses, to educate more pharmacists. When you have a system where it is part of the culture to educate, it makes it much easier for the academics to be done to train healthcare professionals. It also helps bring in the latest research projects available. We've done so many things in terms of COVID research here. And a lot of that with federal grants. We brought in several $1 million of federal grants just to do COVID grants. We brought in several $1 million of federal grants just to do COVID-19 research here. We're just got a big grant to set up what's called a long haulers clinic. There are people who get COVID and they get neurological disorders, respiratory disorders, all sorts of medical problems that don't go away after they resolve the actual infection itself. And we call those folks long haulers because they're hauling these medical problems along with it. And the federal government wants to study them, and they're setting up one of the sites to do that through the Academic Medical Center here, in part because now we have all the components, the pharmacy, the nursing, the new medical school coming along, the graduate medical education programs, all these different things. We felt that if we brought the campuses together, that we could eliminate just the natural barriers that would keep students from being able to freely flow across all the UT facilities here in town. If there are facilities that we could use out at the North Campus, they can now be used now that the campuses are all one. Vice versa, if there are facilities that exist on the UT Tyler main campus, we're able to combine our budgets. We're able to find synergies, and not synergies where people wind up losing jobs. We almost had no duplication of academic programs, but we may duplicate who we have cutting the grass and stuff like that. So there are a ton of synergies that now we can identify. And if we can identify savings, we can pour those funds back into educating, providing higher education in our community. We have a great community college. Dr. Mekki has always been a dear friend, and likewise, Dr. Wanda Hay. We're talking with them about all sorts of things now, bringing together our educational programs to make them as seamless as possible. So if there are kids that would benefit from a community college education, but now they need a more seamless flow into a higher education situation, we can provide that kind of experience. And again, particularly in healthcare, we can be able to provide those kinds of experiences like never before. I'll finish up by just saying that the regents really bought into this concept that they wanted to have one aligned administrative leadership of the University of Texas here in town, the University of Texas at Tyler. The Health Science Center we have a lot of graduate medical education. You know, that's the Grey's Anatomy, the doctors have to do their apprenticeship. We were pretty big in that, and we had graduate students in biomedical sciences and graduate students in public health. But we had a couple of hundred students total in terms of our students, where UT Tyler has 10,000 students. So it was going to be combined. It was going to be known as UT Tyler, but now with a health center campus. So there's still a UT Health Science Center. It's just, that's the health campus of UT Tyler, and we have the main campus of UT Tyler. The regents called me in and they asked me to be president of the combined enterprise. And some people might think that it's unusual for an MD, albeit an MD educator, but unusual for an MD to be president of what is now quite a large university. And that's just simply not. President of the University of Nebraska is a doctor. President of Wayne State is an MD. My good friend, he's doing something President Cornell University ever had was a physician. And some have asked, some of the faculty at UT Tyler, they don't ask it now because they actually seen what I've demonstrated. But they said, well, you're a physician, all you're going to hear about is medicine and the sciences. And you will find that physicians are more sensitive about the arts than you can imagine. Think of your doctor friends. They have some expensive art hanging in their places, and they like to go to really good concerts and hear really great music. And I actually did a study early in my career that identified that the one major that produced the very best doctors, that group was music majors. There's something about the complexity of learning music and the complexity that you get involved with in medicine. It is probably designed for the brain. Yeah. That allows for music majors to be really good doctors. So we are very focused on all the schools at UT Tyler, the engineering school, the education school, liberal arts and sciences, pharmacy school, and of course the nursing school. Who has greater appreciation for what a good nurse can do than a physician who depends on good nurses to protect their rear end and make sure their patients are getting the very best care they can. So there's a great passion to support a nursing program in a physician best care they can. Great passion to support a nursing program in a physician. So I think the future's really bright. Just bring activities of the Health Science Center over to the UT Tyler campus has automatically elevated the prestige of UT Tyler. They actually measure these things. UT Tyler was a Carnegie level, a lower 3. Joined up with the Health Science Center, it's a high 2. Carnegie level 1 universities of places like UT Austin and Harvard and Yale and places like that. So just bringing the two institutions 15 minutes apart has elevated the standing and reputation of UT Tyler dramatically. We moved from Division 3 up to Division 2. I'm actually having a pretty good time. We have the 12th ranked women's volleyball team at Division 2, but in the nation, Division 2. We're in the conference playoffs. I wish all of you could be there, but we have to limit attendance because of COVID. But I went to that game last night. Our young ladies whipped what was it? West Texas A&M in 3 straight sets. Yeah, very, very nice. And I got to throw out the first pitch of the baseball game and attend all these just wonderful things that at this stage of my career honestly was not on my radar a couple of years ago, but I'm having a great time being involved in them and helping move the whole, university forward in ways that we can only begin to imagine. The start date of the medical school, we're hoping that it'd be in the fall of '23. We just submitted a 3,000-page application to do a site visit. We probably would have gotten a site visit this year, but they suspended visits because of COVID until January. So we may have to wait till January to have our site visit. But if we get accredited, out of that, then we'll get approval to start recruiting students for the medical school. So I've talked a lot. It's part of being a college professor. I can just yap. But if there are a question or two, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Not a question. Before we had Paul Glazer, there was Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. And part of what you didn't tell, we moved here right after you did, and that chest hospital was slated to close down, and it was kind of hidden out there and was going to go away. And when I go to audit there first, and you knew everybody there, and every staff member, and all their kids, and all their birthdays, and you really turned that around. And I'm really pleased that you're staying here for that continuity and taking it all forward. But that wasn't supposed to happen, and nobody told you it was going to shut down.
No. You know, when you take over a new job and you look at your financial books from, in my case, you looked at your financial books from 2001, and you look at your books at 2002, and the numbers don't match up, then you might suspect you have a problem. And so, you know, there were some real challenges we had to overcome. But thank you for saying that. And you were down there plenty. The state universities get treated maybe just a little bit better than the community colleges do, but you were down there doing your job very well.
Yes. Will the medical school require expansion at the health science center, or are you looking at other locations?
We are looking at other locations, but there are plenty of folks in here that will tell you that when you're looking for real estate, you don't say where you're looking.
Oh, we'd love to know. By the way.
So I had a question. So on the medical school, I guess having a conversation with Marilyn recently about that. So I think I had in my brain that, you know, the biggest deal you have to take care of is the location, where you go, physical location. And she reminded me, actually knows the faculty. Can you talk a little about recruitment of faculty and what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
So let me just in further deference to his question, we're not going to need to have a new building day one we start accepting students. We have between the UT Tyler main campus and facilities out at the North Campus, we have the space we need to get started. In the long haul, we will need a facility to fully support the medical school. And it's that longer haul facility that we want to be more inside the city limits, so to speak. And we're looking for that. We're looking for that opportunity. One of the things that has allowed us to do this without startup funds from the state. Of course, the funding that we received from the East Texas Medical Center Foundation was absolutely critical. And probably every other medical school in the state got startup funding from the state legislature. And I honestly had some hopes that, since we're part of Texas too, here in East Texas, that the state would treat us just like they treat everybody else. But COVID came along this year and wreaked havoc on the Texas budget. Texas will recover, Texas will do fine. But, you know, those of us in higher education were instructed to reduce our budgets by 5%, so forth. And going and asking our legislature for startup funds for a new medical school in Tyler is probably not in the cards. Well, it was not in the cards. Let's put it this way. Chairman Eltype and I discussed that. We've come so far with the gift from East Texas Medical Center Foundation. There have been other members of the community that have stepped up philanthropically to help us get it started. And we're talking to some other foundations in the area. If any of you all can help. Tyler's going to have to do pretty much all of this in terms of the startup funds ourselves. You know, the last school, Rio Grande Valley, you know, they got $16 million a year from the state for a decade to start their medical school. There was no way we could go and ask anything from the state of Texas with the taxes down and so forth from the decreased business activity in the state with COVID. Back again, they were telling us to cut our budgets, not come with a request for additional funding. So we are literally doing this on our own, but how did I start? I told you it isn't fair, you deal with what you have to deal with, and we're gonna make this work, and we're going to do it on our own. We'll bring the medical school here. The medical school, Ray Perriman says the medical school over a little bit over a decade will have $1 billion financial impact on this region. So, and he's given a report to the business community here on that. So we're going to make this happen, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it on its own. The reason, though, we really wanted the state to approve it is really for the kids that will go there, because I want us to be able to have a lot of kids from East Texas go to our own medical school here. And we want them to go to medical school here, do their residency here, and want to practice in East Texas communities. And with our residency programs, we have really good history of keeping our graduates in this community. Both ETMC and Mother Frances hire a lot of our graduate medical education graduates, and they go and they work in rural communities all over East Texas, and now we'll have even a better pipeline to do that. But if we're a state school, those students, per student amount, the university gets state support. And that state support allows a tuition to go to a state medical school to be around $23,000 a year. It'll fall somewhere between $23,000 and $25,000 a year. The tuition to attend a private medical school is $80,000 to $100,000 a year. And so it was really important that we get the legislature to acknowledge that UT Tyler's medical school is going to be a state medical school, so that our kids from our community can benefit from a state school and have it reduced tuition. Okay, all right, I see people looking at the watch. Thank you.
Don't even think about it just yet. Do you think Dr. Calhoun had passion for this project? What an uplifting, beautiful story. I cannot thank you enough for your time today. We're all blessed to be in this room and hear it, and what a blessing for East Texas and the people here. It's really quite something, almost unbelievable. So thank you for your tenacity and for your passion.
Thank you.
Okay, and for your time today, We made a donation to the Literacy Council in her name. So it's not much, but it's from the heart.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Dr.
Much
Calhoun.
appreciated. I didn't stick to my notes anyway, so.
Now then, for the Eight of Diamonds, Dr. Calhoun, they're gonna want you to draw a ticket out here and read the last three numbers. $5. Woo! The winner takes home half of that, so, drum roll.
Okay, last three numbers, 776.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Pam.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
8 of Hearts. It's still thrilling just to get the opportunity. Okay, now if you'll all stand, do first, is the truth. Second,
Is fair to all concerned.
third,
Will build goodwill and better friendships.
and fourth.
Will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.